Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Was 2023 a game changer in the last mile? To find out more, listen to this Last Mile Profits videocast. Modern Expo provides an integral ecosystem of screen-operated lockers, screenless autonomous solutions, refrigerated lockers, and even personal parcel lockers, powered by in-house developed software. So, Gary, this is pretty much the end of 2023. Interesting year. A lot of things happened. What's your take on 2023 as a year? The sort of the big highlights.
Well, I didn't predict becoming a final mile prophet, so that's quite exciting for me. So it's like one of those sitcoms where they change one of the characters and nobody discusses it. So I thought that was quite nice. I think for us, it's been a kind of almost a year in waiting in some ways. We've had a lot of big projects that we've nearly got going but haven't quite got going. I think from the parcel volumes point of view, I think all the carriers built up we've mentioned this before, built up so much capacity last year. And then with most economies being a little bit soft, there's been a kind of bit of slack in the system. So I don't know if anybody's really felt huge pressure.
Yeah, I get the same feeling. I think from our perspective, what is absolutely clear is that the interest in out-of-home continues. We've had a lot of requests. What has been, from my perspective, interesting, Europe was always hot in terms of out-of-home, but a lot of things happening now, particularly in LATAM, and the opportunity is absolutely incredible because those are virgin markets. So I think probably if I were to choose a highlight from my perspective, and perhaps it's a little bit tainted by my own interest, but I'd say it's growing international interest in out-of-home. And you won't be surprised, Gary, to hear particularly lockers. So I'd say that's the big deal. And I think the fact that perhaps, even the more conservative carriers have understood that without out-of-home capability and particularly locker capability, they're doing themselves and their customers short. There's something we won't cover, I think, in this call, but, very, very recent hot stuff in terms of Royal Mail finally deciding to do something in lockers. So that would be my take on the year.
Yeah, a lot of the carriers that we're talking to, they've moved from if to when and how. So there's the big debate. Do we build our own network? Do we join an agnostic network? Do we put it alongside of PUDO? We've both done a bit of work in the Nordics. What we're seeing there is people are closing their over-the-counter PUDO operations and working only via lockers because of the cost of labour and the disturbance it creates in the retail environment. So if we look at that kind of evolution, the one that's going to be on my plate for next year is going to be North America. We're just about to start our pilots in Atlanta, Georgia, and you've seen the activity that's been promoted by the Department of Transport up in the New York City area. So as you're probably aware, there's going to be a sort of public space agnostic locker network being trialled certainly in the next 3 months in New York as well.
So would it be fair to say, Gary, then if we were to summarize, would say that in terms of parcel volumes, it's been relatively soft. There's no drama, but it's been relatively soft. And because of people's capacity, it's not been as difficult as some years in the past. Porch piracy, one of your favorite topics, and I've seen you pretty much everywhere on that topic, continues to be an issue. But I think probably the big thing is out-of-home developing in new places like North America and perhaps LATAM. So I think those are things we can take a look at and observe carefully next year.
Yeah, and I think also there's lots of stories in the paper about large organisations forcing people back into the office. I mean, I hoped they would drift back in and they would miss the water cooler moments or the social chat in the staff kitchen, what have you. That hasn't happened. So the UK Civil Service are about to force people back in 3 days a week. And I think that means it's going to become that little bit more challenging to deliver to home again. So that will be new interest in out of home because customers are going to start to realise that if your house isn't occupied or your apartment isn't occupied, every day, 6 days a week, you're probably going to need a backup service.
Yeah, I think. Well, look, let's observe. My view is that even when you have people at home, home delivery, because of the fact that I think it's on average about 1.2 parcels per stop, it's still inefficient. You've still got the issues of having to reach the address. So, although it makes it a little bit easier, it's not something that makes or breaks out of home delivery. But let's see. So I think all in all, probably a year without anything really, really big happening. I expect perhaps more in 2023. There's at least one project I can think of that I'm on, and probably that you're on, in terms of what you're up to, that could be a bit of I would say, um, step change in terms of development. So maybe next year we'll be able to talk about that. But for the time being, I think stable year, um, without anything really to write home about big time.
No, there haven't been any sort of catastrophic failures. Some years we've seen big carriers sort of pack up shop and go home where they haven't been able to make ends meet. It's been fairly stable. We haven't seen any big mergers. I mean, I know there's one big acquisition that's just taken place, but we're not seeing sort of a huge amount of that sort of activity. I think it's like you say, it's sort of almost like a market in waiting, and 2024 should see the conclusion of some of the very big projects that we are both aware of.
So to summarize, a market in waiting. Let's see what comes next year. Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.